Okay, we'll get started. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Yo Antah Pravishya Mama Vacha Imam Prashuptam Sanjeevayati Akhila Shakti Daraswadamnam अन्यांष्टहस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम् लसतु श्रीमदानन्दतीर्थेन्दुर्नो हृदम्बरे यद्वचश्चन्द्रिका स्वान्तसन्तापं विनिकृन्तति पदवाक्यप्रमाणज्ञान् प्रणम्य शिरसा गुरून् व्याकरिष्ये यथाभूतं विष्णुतत्त्वविनिर्णयम्. Good afternoon, everyone. So we directly get into the part 21 of our Katha Upanishad Chintane. So what did we do over the last 2 weeks? We are currently in the first Valli of the second Adhyaya. Paranchikani Vyatranat Swayambhuhu Tasmat Parang Pashyati Na Antaratman. Kashchid Dhiraha Pratyagatmanam Aikshat Avruta Chakshuhu Amrutatvam Parancha Kaman Anuyanti Balaha Te Mrutyoryanti Vitatasya Pasham Ata Dhiraha Amrutatvam Viditva Dhruvam Adhruveshu Ihana Prartayante. So those were the first two verses of the first Valli. Then I told you that from a contextual perspective, we have to move to the second Valli and do verse 6, 7, and 8. So last week we did this verse, Hantata idam pravakshami guhyam brahma sanatanam yatacha maranam prapya atma bhavati gautama yonimanye prapadyante sharirattvaya dehinaha sthanumanye anusamyanti yata karma yata shrutam. Ya esha supteshu jagrati kamam kamam purusho nirmamanaha. So we stopped at that point and we were in that. So Yama is talking about once, Yonimanye prapadyante sharirattvaya deinaha. Some people, when they go to heavens, then they come through, they go to the Parjanya Loka, they are in the raindrops falls on earth, it goes on to the plants and into the vegetables, and then that is being cooked and we eat that goes into our testes, it goes into the sperm. And then there is fertilization in a womb, and then the sadhana sharira comes along. So that is yonim anye prapadyante sharirattvaya dohinaha. And there are other jivas, they don't have to go to Swarga and come down based on their karma, based on their shrutam, yata karma, yata shrutam. Some of the jivas, what happens to them is they are in the rain, they come into, they fall down, they fall onto a dead wood, for example, and they immediately sprout. Sthanum is plants, trees. Sthanumanye anusamyanti yata karma yata shuta. Then we are interested only about ourselves as sadhana sharira. So what is happening at this point? Once a full deha is there, once the 9 months of pregnancy is over, the baby is out and the baby is growing, and then the sadhana sharira matures. And then this body, of course, goes through various states of consciousness. And that is all we do. We are in 3 stages of consciousness throughout our existence for, I don't know, 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, 100 years, whatever. So when we are alive, we go through these 3 states of consciousness, and Yama immediately talks about the one in the middle, which is the Swapnasthanam. Ya esha supteshu jagrati kamam purusho nirmamanaha. So when the souls are going through various stages of consciousness, the souls may be in dream, the souls may be in sushupti, the souls may be in a dependent wakeful state. But there is another chap who is always in close companion to this jiva, who is always in a jagrati state. His jagrati state is an independent jagrati state. And whatever he pleases, he subjects the jiva through. So jagrati. Ya esha sukteshu, but he is jagrati. And what does he do? Kamam purusho nirmamanaha. And this world of dreams is discussed quite a lot, and we did this last week. So just a quick recapitulation here. So the dream state is, as we all know, our sense organs, the 5 indriyas, jnana indriyas that we have, when we go to sleep, the jnana indriyas are closed. Our contact with the external world is not there. So, but what is happening? Our inner world is opened up. So through brain and mind and so on, there is all these dream things that are happening. The neurophysiology of dreams is fairly complicated. And in this forum, we have had enough discussions about it. But that is essentially is the dream state where the contact of the contact of the sense organs with the external world is shut. So we are in an inner state of activity in the brain, mind, whatever you want to call it. So that is the dream state. And we also understood, so if me as a jiva was an independent being, then I should be able to draft my own plots within dreams. I should probably decide tonight I'm going to have this kind of dream and then go and sleep and get that kind of dream. But we don't. Dreams just happen to us. So our rishis were actually looking at the philosophical aspects. And of course, they've also dissected out the physiological aspects. But the rishis are more interested in the philosophical aspects of dream. And they asked the question, why does the dream happen? And when the dream happens, it's wonderful experience for all of us. And that they found amazing. They found this dream world amazing. And if the external world is amazing, our rishis also think that the inner world of dreams is even more amazing. Okay? And they've gone about a lot in the scriptures, for example, in the Upanishads, in the Vedas, you will see this discussions about dreams coming again and again, because it is a fascinating world and they're always perplexed by how does this dream is created. It cannot be a random event. According to Vedic philosophy, nothing is a random event. Everything has a purpose. And they've given that purpose, and that the creator of the dreams is not the jiva. In their final analysis, the creation of the dream is because of Brahman, who uses the vasanas and projects them on the mind, and the jiva is just a silent spectator during the dream. And in Mandukya Upanishad, we have of course understood that the form of the Lord that enables this to happen actually resides in the Visuddhi Chakra, in the gland. I've given the answer there. There was supposed to be a quiz. So I'll ask the second question there. What is the name given to the Supreme who is there, who is sitting in the gland in the Visuddhi Chakra? So who wants to answer that question? What is the name of the Supreme there? The clue is there in the bottom section.
Tejas.
Tejasanamaka Paramatma, yes, but he's also got a specific name. Sushud, the Tejasa form, he's got a specific name, Vaishwanaraha. Yeah, he's also called Tejasa, but he's also called Vaishwanaraha. So that form of the Supreme that controls the dream state is called Vaishwanaraha. He is also called Tejasa. He is the same Vaishwanara form of the Supreme, also controls the Jagrati state. So another thing that I just want to remind folks here is, when I say Vaishwanara, it doesn't mean some fellow has gone and named the Supreme Brahman. You are giving us dream, so your name is Vaishwanara. That is not how we understand when we read the scriptures. And this is a fundamental mistake that many folks do. When we give various names to the Supreme, remember, and I am not tired of reminding you again, is those names are only a description of an attribute of the Supreme. When I say Vishnu, it is not a sectarian name. It is describes attribute of a supreme being. When I say Shiva, it is not a name to a person who is in Kailasha, but it may be, but it actually gives an attribute of a supreme being who is called Shiva. Yeah, so that is how you approach it. So when I say Vaishwanaraha, there scriptures again talk a lot about this Vaishwanaraha. So I'll just give you a few new takes on this Vaishwanara, which we may have discussed, but this is again a revision. So in Mandukya Upanishad, this form of the Supreme is called Saptangaha Ekona Vimshati Mukaha. Yeah. So what does that mean? So this Vaishwanara form has got Shaptanga. Saptaha means 7. It's got 7 extremities. And Eko na Vimshat. Vimshat is 20. Eko na means 1 minus 20, which is 19. So the Vedas describe that this being having 7 Angas and 19 faces. And again, that is completely metaphorical. That is for us to understand the attributes of the Supreme and what he controls and so on. It's not that he's got this 19 face and running around in the universe. That 19 phase and 7 aspects is for us to understand the Supreme with our limited intellect. Okay, so this is a key idea of the Upanishads and the Rishis, that sometimes we run into the danger of forgetting that basic idea, but we somehow stick to some nouns and we have unnecessary arguments around it. So let's look at Vaishwanaraha. So Vaishwanaraha divided into two, Vishwa and Nara. Vaishwa or Vishwa. What is Vishwa? We all know Vishwa means this world. Okay. There are two types of world. There is the external world and there is the inner world of dreams. So there gets your easy answer. So that form of the Lord that controls the state of the jivas, both in their state when they are interacting with the external world, and at the same time when they are experiencing the inner world, which is the dream state, that form is called Vaishwa Naraha. Now look at the word Naraha. Okay, Naraha, and again we've discussed this in various forums, and I don't know if anybody wants to talk about what does Nara actually mean. What is the etymology of Nara? Anybody wants to come here? So for Narayana, for example, he is called Narayana. Why is he called Narayana? Not because he's sleeping on a snake and somebody is pressing onto his leg. There is a reason, isn't it? So Nara also is only etymological. It only gives you an idea. So anybody wants to contribute here, or I'll just go on? Okay. So I will proceed. So Ara means dosha. Okay. Ara and na ara means he's got no dosha. So that person who controls the external and inner state of the jivas, he's got no doshas. Okay. That is, when he has no doshas means what? No defects. That being has no defects means what? He's got infinite auspicious attributes. So we should always bring the concepts here. When I say Vaishwa Naraha, this is one sense, that he controls the external internal world, and that person has got no doshas and he's full of infinite attributes. Okay, and then there are other ideas also you can get. Ra can also mean riyate, destruction. Na riyate means he's got no destruction, so he is akshara. And we have endlessly discussed akshara, the akshara brahman, akshara brahman as supreme Vishnu Narayana himself. So na ramate equals nara, that means no sukha. So this word Vaishwa Naraha, the sandhi there can be Vishwa Nara or Vishwa Anara. So if you take Anara, na ramayate, na plus ramate means he is full of sukha, which means he is full of infinite bliss. So that Vaishwa Naraha itself then opens up of a being who's got no defects, is full of gunas, and is full of eternal bliss. Okay. And of course, in Gita, we have this famous verse, isn't it? Who is going to recite that particular verse that talks about this Vaishwanaraha? Who is going to take that? I'll pause for a minute.
Sorry?
Yeah, go for it.
Vaishwanaro bhutva praninam dehamashritah pranapana samayuktah pachamyannam chaturvidah.
Beautiful, Veenaji. Thank you so much. So in Krishna, in the 15th chapter, he's given us also an important verse about Vaishwanaraha. So read up about that Vaishwanaraha. How do you do the etymology there? Aham Vishwa Nara Samband. Aham Vaishwa Nara Bhutva. Vishwa Nara Sambanditvad. Aham Vaishwa Naraha Bhutva. I am also in the man. I am also in the dog. I am in everything as an Antaryami. Yeah, I am very close to a soul. Vishwa Nara Sambanditvat. I'm very, very close. Jivam Antikat, as Yama talks about in the next verse. And that is the same idea. Vishwa Nara Sambanditvat. So there are all these ideas that come about. These are all the things that we need to contemplate when we think about this name called Vaishwanaraha that talks about the dream state. Now, here is a small sidetracking, but I think this is important, because that opens up, once we know that this is Vaishwanara form of the Supreme that controls the dream state, and when I have said this chap has got 19 faces and 7 Angas, and we have done those slides in Mandukya Upanishad, I can't remember which section it was, which presentation it was, but we have dealt with in detail about what the significance of 7 Angas and what are the significance of the 9 faces. Yeah, the 7 Angas or the Sapta Dhatus, for example, the 7 layers that covers the soul, or the 19 faces can be your Jnana Indriya, Karma Indriya, Pancha Prana, Manas, Ahankara, Chitta, and Chetana. Those could be the 19 aspects that the Supreme Being actually pervades and controls in the journey of souls. So if you take that kind of approach, this is interesting. When we spoke previously about the 7 Angas of the Supreme, what that 7 Angas actually mean is the 7th Anga, there is a trunk, which is in the first phase of the Vaishwanara form as described in the Upanishads and in the Vedas. And that has an elephant-like face with a trunk. Okay, so that form, that Vaishwanara form, is also called Vishwambara Murti form of the Supreme. Okay, so this is what makes it very interesting, because on the 31st of August, we got which function is happening on the 31st of August? Who wants to take that question? What's happening on the 31st of August?
Ganesh Chaturthi.
Thank you, Veenaji. So we are getting Ganesh Chaturthi on the 31st of August. And yes, hopefully, God willing, we'll do a session just before that on Sunday, thinking about who this Ganesha or Ganapati is. But I just want to introduce here this particular verse of the Rig Veda, okay, that talks about Ganapati. Okay, and it is all related to the Vishwa form of the Supreme that controls the waking state and the dream state. Okay, so anybody wants to recite this particular verse, you will all be very familiar with this Gananam to Ganapatihim. Anybody wants to recite that?
I could try.
Yeah, go for it.
गणानां त्वगणपतिं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमस्य मह्यं ज्येष्ठराज्यं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पद आयुष्शृण्वन्नोतिभिः श्रीदसादनम्.
Thank you, Suresh. Yeah, beautiful. So very well recited. So if you look at that Ganesha mantra, so you can ask, who is this Ganesha and Ganapati? Actually, from a Paramamukya Vritti, or in the ultimate sense, the very first, the word Ganapati comes in the Rig Veda. Okay, and it comes in this second mandala of the Rig Veda, and I hope you will find this very, very interesting. So it comes in the second mandala of the Rig Veda when this particular mantra appears, as Suresh ji so beautifully recited. Gananam twa ganapatihim havamahe kavim kavinam upamashravastamam jeshtarajam brahmanam brahmanaspata anashrunvan utibihi sida sadhanam is what this mantra states. And the Rishi who talks about this, that Rishi's name is Gurusmata. In fact, this mandala is called Gurusmata Mandala. Okay? This whole mandala is called Gurusmata Mandala. In that, you have this particular 23rd Sukta. Okay? And look at all these numerology in the Vedas. This particular Sukta has got 19 mantras corresponding to the 19. Eko na vimshati mukaha. This Vishwambara or Vaishwanaraha that controls the external and the internal worlds of the Jivas has got 19 aspects. And Gurusmata Rishi in this verse actually puts 19 mantras in this sukta. So all this is not by chance in various suktas when they put the mantras and they talk about the Ganapati. So the question there is, when Gurusmata Rishi in this particular sukta talks about this very famous verse that everybody recites in all the pujas before they start any puja, this particular mantra of the Rig Veda is discussed. Okay, so now the question is, the Ganapati of the Veda and the Ganapati of the 31st of August, are they the same or different? Or how do we approach this and how do we bring it in our Upanishad studies when we are talking about what Yama has to say to Nachiketa? So here is the questions here. So we all know that Ganapati is the Abhimani Devata of Bhutakasha. That is all his portfolio in Brahmanda is. Okay, he's the Abhimani Devata of Bhutakasha. Whereas our Vaishwanara form of the Supreme, our Supreme Lord is the Lord of the universe. He was there even before this Ganesha came into existence. Ganesha's appearance in Brahmanda is only when the Panchabhutas are happening. Shiva has appeared, Tanmatras have happened. Now the Tanmatras are maturing into Panchabhutas. And in that there is the Bhuta Akasha. When the Bhutakasha comes, Ganesha comes. Tasmad Atmanaha Akashaha Sambhutaha, as Taittiriya Upanishad talks about this. So that is where Ganesha comes as Bhutakasha Abhimani, whereas this Ganesha is the Lord of the universe. Ganapati is the Lord of the universe. Our Ganesha of the 31st of August is the 18th rank in the Vedic pantheon. That is high enough. But our Ganapati is the first rank in the Vedic pantheon. So this elephant form with a trunk and so on is actually very interesting for Vedic contemplation. We can bring in Mandukya Upanishad, Yamas in Nachiketa, in the Katha Upanishad, Rig Veda, and actually understand properly who the Ganapati is and with what spirit we do our Ganesha Chaturthi on the 31st. So hopefully we will have a session on that on the 28th. Let's see how it goes. So I hope this was not totally unrelated, but actually it is very much related, because this Ganapati, who is the Abhimani Devata of Bhutakasha, his Antaryaman is this Vishwambara Murti who is sitting inside him. Okay, and that is why he gets the name Ganapati, because this Ganapati is inside him as his Antaryamin. So that is the Samanvaya of the Brahma Sutras that Vedavyasa has taught us when we study and worship Ganesha. Hope you would find this interesting. So let's just go on to the next verse, which is a new verse for today. So what does this verse says? That person who controls the inner dream world, who is he? Yama says, Tadeva Shukram, Tadeva Brahma, Tadeva Amrutam Uchyate, Tasmin Lokaha Shritaha Sarve, Tadu na atyeti kaschana yetadvai tat. So as you have seen in the next several words, Yama will use this ones. Etadvai tat, etadvai tat. That one who is inside you as an Antaryamin is the same fellow who is in Vaikunta in the Mokshas sthiti. They are all the same. Etadvai tat, etadvai tat. He keeps on saying this to bring home the truth that just because he is here right now as our Antaryamin does not mean he is not there. He is simultaneously there in both places, and that is his Achintya Adbhuta Shakti. So, Etad Vai he says, but before that he says, Etad Tadeva Shukram, and he celebrates Shukram. Now, Shukram becomes a new name of the Lord. Okay, so he gives him various names and celebrates. So let's understand what that means. Even Tat is the name of the Supreme. Tat. Who is going to answer that question and possibly recite that chapter 17, 23rd verse that actually tells where Krishna says, Tat is my name. So who wants to recite that, please? Sheilaji, go on. Thank you.
ॐ तत्सदिति निर्देशो ब्रह्मणस्त्रिविधः स्मृतः ब्राह्मणास्तेन वेदाश्च यज्ञाश्च विहिता पुरा.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sheilaji. So in that particular verse, 23rd verse of chapter 17, Krishna said, my name is Tat. I'm called Om. I'm called Tat. I'm also called Sat. Okay. Now the question is, when Krishna says I'm called Tat, then the question is, why is he called Tat? Okay, so who is going to recite this Gayatri Mantra, which actually gives the clue here? So who wants to take up the Gayatri Mantra and recite this for us? Pragnesh.
Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Tiyo Yona Prachodayat.
Thank you, Pragnesh.
Bhuvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Tiyo Yona Prachodayat.
Thank you. Thank you, Pragnesh. So yes, the Gayatri Mantra is a shortened version of Tat. When I say Tat, it is not just means the that of English, but actually it is a name of the Supreme as told by Krishna. And Krishna has said, my name is Tat, because he is celebrated in the Gayatri Mantra. And we have done the sessions on Gayatri Mantra. We go back and do some revisions. So how does Gayatri starts with? Tat. And then how the Tha it starts, and how does it finish? Yat, prachodayat. So you take Tha and Tha, Tat. So when I say Tat, the whole of the Gayatri Mantra is compressed in it. Similarly, when I say Sat, yes, he is real. So is the world. So is the Jivas. Everybody is real. He is independent real. We are dependent real, but reality is still there. That is not the only reason he is called Sat, but he is also celebrated in the Gayatri. Look at after Tat, what is the next word here? Sa and Yat. So Sat. So when I say Sat, that also explains the Gayatri Mantra also. So when I say Om Tat Sat, as Krishna says, Tat is right in the middle. So that is what our Yama is saying. Tat, that Tat is there, right? Tad eva Shukram. Okay, so that is how you understand it, rather than just say that fellow is Shukram. Yeah, no, but that Tat of the Gayatri, the Tat of Krishna, that Vaishwanara form, Eva means only, Shukram. Okay, Shukram, he is also called Shukram. What is Shukram? Shukram has various meanings. Shukrams can mean white, it can mean spotless, it can mean pure. So when something is pure and spotless, then what happens? It has no shoka. Shoka means defects leading to suffering. Okay, Rahita means without shoka, Shoka Rahita. Because he is spotless, he has no defects and he never suffers. This entity is called Shukram because he never suffers, he is always in an infinite state of bliss. So that person who controls your dream state is Tat, and he is also celebrated as Shukram. Okay. And then he then says Tad Brahma. And we all know what Brahma is. We don't have, we have discussed this trillion times, I think. So Brahma, uh, a being of infinite auspicious attributes, a being that pervades all of space, a being that pervades all of time is Brahma. So Tad Eva Brahma. And then again he says Tad Eva Amrutam. That being is the Amrutam. So again, Amruta means you have to split them and understand it. A plus Mruta, Mruta is what, like you and me, we have bodies that die, whereas that guy has a body that has never died. Amruta, he is always eternal. We as Jivas are eternal, but we still have to have an external body and we go through cycles of birth and death. Okay, that is our Mruta. Okay, but he has never has that kind of a situation. So he is Amruta. And Amruta also means nectar, sweetness, and he is full of bliss. Okay. So our Yama then celebrates this Supreme Lord as Tadeva Shukram, Tad Brahma, Tadeva Amrutam Uchyate. So when you look at all this, then what you should do is when we do our contemplation and manana, then we need to understand when we do the studies of the Prasthana Trayas, which is what we do in this forum. Gita Prasthana, Sutra Prasthana, and Sutra Prasthana, and Upanishad Prasthana. Whenever we can, when we do the studies, we bring them all together. So then we need to understand, yes, our Shastra tell us that he is Om. Yama himself has said he is Om. Om it etat. He has already said in the very first verse. Then we know he is also called Aksharam. Then he is called Sarvaha. He is called Brahma. He is called Atma. He is called Vaishwanaraha. He is called Tejasa, as Sushruta mentioned. He is called Vaishwanaraha. He is called Brahman. He is called Shukram. He is called Amrutam. So you need to get all these names so that we understand the attributes of the Lord. So getting these names, the ideas of getting these names is not just a proper noun, as I told you before, is to get a grasp of the attributes of the Supreme Being that controls and creates and destroys this universe. So Tadeva Shukram, Tad Brahma, Tadeva Amrutam Uchyate. And then he gives a reminder for all of us. Tasmin lokaha shritaha sarve taduna atyeti kashchana. So what does that mean? This is very interesting. And again, we are very familiar with these ideas. So tasmin lokaha shritaha sarve. So we just need to break that open. Shritaha is easy. Shritaha means ashritaha. Ashritaha means something that is a supporter or controller of everything, or something on which everything else is dependent. So those are all the ideas when I say ashritaha. So that idea of ashritaha, I've just picked up a verse from chapter 9, 6th verse, and who wants to go for this, please? Nita, go for it.
यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यं वायुर्सर्वत्र गो महान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानीत्युपधारय.
Beautiful. So, Neeta, do you want to give us an explanation of this also verse? Okay, don't worry, it's fine. So I know you're in some discomfort. So yeah, yata akashastito nityam vayuhu sarvatra go mahan. So this is like as how the wind which blows everywhere in the atmosphere, but its final place is this akasha. That akasha is the supreme being, and the vayus is like us souls who are wandering here and there. But our final sthiti, our final ashraya is that person. So that's a beautiful verse that gives you that idea. Yata akashastito nityam vayur sarvatra gomaha. Okay, so ashritaha. So next look at this one. Tadu na atyeti kaschana. Nobody is outside his control. That is the idea there. Your jiva, you know what, you may be going into dream state, waking state, but you are never out of his control. In all your states of existence, you're always in his state of control. And it's a clear pointing of Yama about this controllership. So there is somebody who is controlled, and then there is a controller. There are two entities there that Yama is clearly mentioning here. Na atyeti kaschana tasmin lokaha shritaha sarve. So there are two entities. If there are only two entities and one is supreme, all others are dependent, then there is a question of ashritaha. Okay, so all those words you need to think and contemplate. The controller and the control, from a Yama's perspective, can never be one and the same. It is the jiva who is controlled, and the controller is the Paramatma. So here he says, Tasmin lokaha sarve. So what is loka? Loka means, yes, it can mean the external world, but for us, our body is our loka. Yeah, this is our in our pindanda, this body is our loka where we reside. Yeah, Puram, Eka, Dvashadvaram, all those things are discussed. Yeah? This is also called Puram. Yeah, like Kanji Puram, it is also a Puram, which is also called Loka. Yeah? So Tasmin lokaha sarve. So in all the bodies, anywhere in the universe, and also in the Brahmanda in the universe, Tasmin lokaha sarve. So that is the idea there. Yeah, Tasmin lokaha sarve. Natu na tad na atyeti kashtana. Okay, nobody is outside his control, i.e., meaning everybody is under his control. And that is the reason, of course, is the 16th, 17th, and the 18th verse of chapter 15, isn't it? Is essentially talking about this idea. And again, let's not get tired of reciting this. Every opportunity we should recite this. So who wants to go for these verses? Pragnesh went there first. Pragnesh, go for it.
Shall I recite all three or only one?
Yeah, all three, go for it.
Thank you. Dvamivo purusho loke ksharaschaksara eva cha kshara sarvani bhutani kutasthoksara uchyate uttamah purusaspanya parasmatmetu dayata yo lokatrayama visaya bibhatvarsya ishwarah yasmat paraksara matuto bhaksharadapi yo chottamah atosmin loke vede cha prathitah purusottamah.
Thank you, Pragneshji. Beautiful. So clearly establishing that there is this one supreme entity who is far above the matter, jivas, and the Chetana Prakriti. And we have discussed this endlessly in those chapter 15 and various forums. So look at the words. How many times has Krishna used loka here? Dvayama purusho loke. One. Yo lokatrayama vishya. Loka. Second time. And in the third verse, Ato asmin loke vedecha purusha. So there are so many lokas that are described in this verse. And there is also a loka here. So when I talk about loka, there are various meanings for loka, and I just thought it will be helpful for us. So one loka means external world. One loka means our Brahmanda. And then here he says, Ato asmin loke vedecha. Okay, so if you look at here, there is another meaning of here. So Veda in this verse in Krishna is very easy. Veda means Vedas. What is Loka there? Loka means Puranas. Okay, there is also another meaning there of Veda means the Apaurushya Vedas, And Loka means the Puranas, the Paurusheya Granthas that come into being during existence. Okay? So there are various meanings, at least three. External world, body, and Puranas are also called Lokas. Okay? So coming back to this, so Yama is very, very clear. Tasmin Lokaha Sarve Ashritaha. Everything in existence are dependent, supported, and controlled by him. Tad wu there means stress. Na atyeti kashtana. Nobody can surpass it. It is impossible. There is nothing that can surpass it. That is described in, of course, in the chapter 15, 16, 17, 18. That fellow who is inside you, etat, why? Definitely, tat is the same that controls you in the moksha. Remember, in this Valli, we are discussing about this greatness of the Supreme in moksha and what is the moksha sthiti. That is the discussion that is happening between Yama and Nachiketa. And Yama is constantly telling, that state that I'm describing all this, that state, that being who is there in that state is the same being he is here as well. They are non-different, they are the same. The Paramatma and in Vaikuntha, they are all the same. And in fact, the same concept is, of course, in a very brief fashion, is captured by Purusha Shukta. When Purusha Shukta says, Uta Amrutatvasya Ishanaha. This Brahman controls all the jivas who are in the Amrutatva state, that is in Vaikuntha. So, Uta Amrutatvasya Ishanaha, if he is controlling them in the moksha sthiti, is it not understood that he also controls us in the samsara state? So, those are the ideas of Purusha Shukta. So, when you put all these things together, we clearly now understand how Yama is making us understand this greatness of the Supreme. So here we have understood two new words that are names of the Supreme: Shukram and Amrutam. Brahma, we already know that. Okay. So now what we have to do is, now that we have done that particular verse in the second Valli of the second Adhyaya, now we have to move back to the first Valli, because we are doing the first Valli, right? So we have done the first two verses. Let's just repeat the second one. Parancha kaman anuyanti balaha te mrutyoryanti vitatasya pasham ata dhiraha amrutatvam viditva dhruvam adhruveshu ihana prartayante. Now, the reason why we have to do this, look at how many times this etad vai tat comes in this particular Valli. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 times Yama has said etad vai tat in this Valli. And in the previous verse is introduced that idea. Tasmin lokaha shitaha sarve natu na atyeti kaschana etad vai tat in the other Valli. So it is based on all these research. The scholars of certain schools have understood that the verses are moved around. So we have to bring it here and get it in context. Okay. So I'll also give you another reason why that makes a lot of sense. Previously, Yama was talking about the dream state. And he spoke how the Supreme Being controls everything in the dream state. Now he is going to go to a wakeful state. And that is what this verse is. Yena rupam rasam gandham shabdan sparshanscha maitunan yetena eva vijanati kimmatra parishishyate yetadvai tadri. Okay, so let's see what that means. So now he talks about the wakeful state, which is a logical thing to do. He took the dream state to bring this bhakti in us, to bring this devotion in us. And last week I told you about how the dream state, Veda Vyasa talks about a particular adhikaranam called Sandhya Adhikaranam. Sande Shristirahahi. And he says the dream world is created by Supreme Brahman is the first sutra. And Vyasa will take up Vishaya Vakyas from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, and illustrate that point. To bring home this idea of how wonderful the inner world is. So how wonderful the creator of the inner world should be. Now he will say, look, the external world is wonderful. How wonderful should be the creator of the external world? And he does this in this verse. Yena rupam rasam gandham shabdan sparshanshta maitunan yetena eva vijanati Kimatra parishishyate etadvai tat. So we all know what the wakeful state is. I don't have to go into the details of this. So the sense organs are open, 5 indriyas are perfectly working. We are in contact with all these 5 tanmatras, and then that sends signals into the brain, and we are perceiving, and then we are getting on with our samsara, whatever that might be. Okay, so that is what he is talking about. Rupam, rasam, gandham, shabdan, sparshan. He's covered everything. Okay, he's covered the 5 tanmatras, which then modify and become the 5 panchabhutas. Okay, who is going to tell us the 5 panchabhutas and 5 tanmatras? Tanmatras I've said already: Rupam, Rasam, Gandham, Shabdan, Sparshan. So who is going to talk about the 5 panchabhutas? So what are their modifications? Anybody for panchabhutas?
Akasha, Vayu, Pani, something. Is that my direction?
Yeah, so you got most of it. So Akasha, Vayu. Just think about Akasha, then Vayu. When air molecules are mixing with each other, you get friction, and because of that, you get heat. So Tejas. When heat is there, there will always be sweating. So there will be water. So Aap is the 4th one. And when the water solidifies and becomes more and more, metals come up, elements come up, they all become solids. So those 5 states are the Panchabhutas. Okay, so what is it talking about? So we all know now: Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Jal or water, and Prithvi. And they are evolutes of Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, and Gandha. So the question here that Yama is asking you is, go to the basic philosophical question. And we have done this before. Yeah. So we are all familiar with this. Ask the basic questions here. Your body is also made of the Panchabhutas, right? And your Panchabhuta body gets in contact with the external objects, which are also made of Panchabhutas, which have the qualities of these 4. Now, you are just sitting inside this body and experiencing all this. Do you need to ask this question, mate, as how does all this happen? Yeah. Does it all just happen? You are control of it, or how does it all happen? Yeah, we just need to be looking at the philosophical aspect of it. The scientists, of course, tell us various theories and say this is how it works. But there are the philosophical aspect is, why does it work that particular way? That is the question of the philosophers, not to explain how things happen. How things happen is the purview of science, but why things happen that way is the purview of the philosophers. So Yama wants us to ask those philosophical questions. How do all this happen in this particular way in the empirical state? In the waking state, that's all we do. So he's asking us, you can have a lot of discussion, philosophical discussions about these tanmatras and panchabhutas, but we've done this before. So I'm going to jump to the next verse here. How does it happen? Ask that question, because when you ask that question, you will realize, yetena eva. It is because of him. It is because of him these things have come, because he is Janmadhyasya Yataha. He is the one who brings universe into creation, and all the other evolutes that come from the universe are all under his control. And in the ultimate analysis, Yetena Eva, that these things come about. Know the truth, Vijanati. And then he also says, also realize that when all these things are gone, okay, when the world eventually dissolves, when all the panchabhutas are gone, panta tanmatras are gone, the hankara tattva is gone, the mahat tattva is gone, mula prakriti has gone into that state of equilibrium, what remains? What remains when everything else is gone? And we have done this in Nasadiya Sukta. And in even Chatushloki Bhagavatam talks about this. Ahameva asamagre is the very first verse of Chatushloki Bhagavatam. Says, I am the only one that exists before creation that comes into being. And I am the one that exists after dissolution. So, kimmatra pashyati pashyasi, what remains when everything else is gone? Yetat vai tat. Okay. So that one that you engage in your wakeful state is because of him. And he is the one that will also remain when all this wakeful, the material world that you are enjoying is gone. He is the one that will remain independently. Okay. So this is one way of looking at this verse, but there is also an interesting, much more deeper levels of looking at this state. Because remember, Yama is talking about all the states of the jivas, right? Of how they enjoy. So essentially what he's talking about is you are in contact with external various external things and you seem to be enjoying everything. And that is because of him. But when he has said etat vai tat, that becomes interesting because that same Paramatma who controls your states of enjoyment in the wakeful state in samsara is the same Paramatma who controls your enjoyment state in moksha. So this is interesting. Enjoyment state of the jivas in moksha. Okay, so I've got a few things for us to open up and have some discussions before we close this session. So I've said in moksha, do souls have a separate identity or not? Now, when he says etat vai tat, etena eva vijanati, etat vai tat, everything is because of that, then we need to ask, of course, there are various views of Vedanta here, but do souls have a separate identity or not? So who wants to, tackle this vexed question of Vedantic philosophy? Suresh.
Yeah. Souls do have separate identities because each one enjoys to their capacity. I mean, not everybody is. I would say that they retain their individual identities, though they may be mixed in the crowd, but the identity does remain. Is how I would understand.
Fantastic. Okay, that's a one view, Suresh. So then the other question is, if they have a maintained their identity in moksha, what are they doing in moksha? Are they just sitting there like useless fellows, just idle, not even aware of their own existence, or what are they doing? Do they do anything at all? Do souls? That's the question I put. Do souls have a positive experience of bliss in moksha? Do souls do any activities and enjoy in moksha with their swarupa indriyas? So those are all the questions that come in the next level. What are they doing? Because some philosophers tell us that souls may not exist in moksha, and in that state of moksha, it is a state of sunyatva, of no experience at all, and they are not even aware of their own existence in moksha. It's a state of complete negative zeroness. Is that what it is? Or is it a positive experience of activities and joys of moksha is? What do the scriptures say here, and how do we perceive this? How do we take this in our day-to-day life?
So Madhu, perhaps the souls they have positive, they do experience positive. They have positive experience, and including Lakshmi, I guess everybody is still busy trying to understand and learn the infinite vastness of the Lord, and so they are in perpetual seek of knowing the Lord closer and better, perhaps.
So the next question there is, do they then experience also the contact of sabda, sparsha, rupa, rasagandha? Because these are panchaputas of material world, isn't it? That is not there in the moksha sthiti. So what is it that they are enjoying then? So Deval.
Can I just clarify? My understanding was that Brahman is Satchit Ananda and soul is also Satchit Ananda. So the definition of soul is Satchit Ananda. So they have to experience, they will be experiencing that Satchit and Ananda.
Okay, yeah, that's
how it's defined in the Vedas. I know that the three schools of Vedanta is giving a different explanation about it, but whether that Ananda is Purnatva, I don't know, but that is where we are at, actually.
Yeah, excellent, Deval. So again, I'll put another corollary on that. So you're very well
Madhu,
put. So,
can I ask
yeah,
something?
Sheila ji, yeah.
What I have heard is when the moksha sthiti, Atma Ramo Bhavati, you are always contemplating on Paramatma or the super soul, Is that what it is, or is it after death? When is this moksha we get?
Sure. Yeah, Sheilaji, thank you for that contribution. So yes, yes, another somebody else, Neeta Shushot.
Yes, I think I agree with Sheilaji. That's what I was going to say. And also that there are 4 different types of mokshas, depending on as Rishi was mentioning, their what they are capable or capacity. So whether it's Sayujya, Salogya, Samipya, there's one more, can't remember. Sarupya. Yeah. So I think just an example I was thinking always is like you want to watch a cricket match, whether you're in the ground watching it live, you may be sitting in the last seat or you may be sitting in hospitality and watching it. So you're how close you are to Bhagavanta, but you are in there, you got that seat, but you know what you can afford, what karma points you have collected to afford which seat. So, but you are watching Bhagavanta and praising.
Yeah. Great, yeah,
Lord.
Fantastic, Neeta. Thank you very much. So yeah, so the consistent theme that comes across here is that at least in our forum with the conversations that we have had now and previously, that moksha sthiti is a very dynamic state. So that is what I think is a resounding idea that we get from here, that it is a very dynamic state. It is not a state. It is not a state of total, nothingness. There is constant something is going on, yeah, in the moksha sthiti. And in fact, Shastra says things are going on in the material world because they are just some say it's a perverted version of what happens in moksha. I don't like that word perverted version. It is a reflected version of what happens in moksha sthiti. Things are happening here because similar kind of things are happening in the moksha sthiti. Okay. Of course, in moksha, there is no panchabhutas. There is no material things there. There, everything is made of Satchitananda, as Devalji mentioned. Jiva is Satchitananda, yes, and then God is Satchitananda. So Deval, I was going to ask there, does Jiva just sit there enjoying his own inherent bliss, or does the Jiva sit there experiencing his own inner bliss and also the bliss that he gets with the association of the Supreme? Plus whether he also gets the bliss of actually interacting with other moksha jivas there. Yeah, so we all know we are not, if we are alone there, it's a boring place. We need to be constantly interacting not only with the Supreme, but also with other moksha jivas, right? There are infinite moksha jivas also in moksha, says our scriptures. So what is happening there? So the idea there here is that moksha sthiti, number one, is a very dynamic place. There's lots of activities going on. The soul is inherently enjoying itself, companion with the Supreme, but also companionship with other jivas who are there in moksha. Those are all the ideas. Now, you and me, we can't conjure theories here and hypotheses and say this is what is happening. We need to go to Apaurushya Veda and ask what is happening there, because the fellows who have gone to moksha have not come back and told us that this is what is happening in moksha. Nobody has told us. We have to go to Apaurushya Veda and see what the Upanishads and Samhitas and Brahmanas have to say. And there is a beautiful verse in Chandogya Upanishad, and I have just put it here. And here it says, this is the Chandogya Upanishad talks about what is happening in moksha. Param Jyotir Upasampadhyata. Okay, words are all very, very important. Param Jyoti, we are familiar, the supreme light. Upa Sampadhyate, the jivas go close to him. Okay, and I'm sorry, but I just find it very disappointing how somebody can say that when the Upanishad says Upa Sampadhyate, they go close to Brahman. How can they say they become Brahman? I find it very difficult when I look at this Chandogya Upanishad verse. Param Jyotir Upa Sampadhyate Svena Rupena Abhinishpadhyate Sa Uttama Purushaha. And then it says Satatra Paryeti Chakshat Kridan Ramamanaha Strir Birva Yoni Birva Nyati Birva. And it goes on. Chandogya Upanishad. Look at that section 8 Adhyaya that talks about it, where it says these jivas, they will go very close to this Param Jyoti and they enjoy that Svena Rupena Abhinishpati, and they enjoy the bliss, etc. But also what they're doing is, look, they're very playful, they're doing various activities. Chakshat, Kridan, Ramamanaha, they're playing, they're riding horses, they are associating with other jivas. Strir Birva, with their Stri version of Jivas. And again, this is another proof that the Jivas male and female classification of living things is not based on the external body. It is based on the nature of the Jivas. Yeah, this is a key ideas of the Vedas. Stri Birva, Yoni Birva, they associated with Stri Jivas. Jnati Birva, they discuss Vedanta Sutra, they discuss Vedas, and they have lots of fun doing all this. They're always in that Ananda state. Okay, so you know the dynamic things that's going on in moksha. You are also doing similar things here, dynamic things, using your indriyas, and you are associating with the tanmatras. Okay, so this guy, etat vai tat, this guy who controls your enjoyment in the empirical state is the same Brahman who controls your Ananda state in moksha. Deval. Deval, you had a question?
I can wait till the end. I think you should finish your thing.
Yeah. Okay. So, that is why he says etad vai tat here. So all the dynamic things that you are doing in the wakeful state, similar dynamic things you are doing in the moksha sthiti. Our Veda Vyasa, again, this is just a reminder for those who want to go and do a bit more of research in this. Fourth Adhyaya, Muktaha Pratigyanat. Okay, and then there is another important sutra called Jagat Vyapara Varjam. Okay, this maintenance of, we don't have time to all this. So these are all important sutras that talk about this moksha sthiti. So all that I've told you is neither my opinion. It is only Veda Vyasa who describes all this in Vedanta Sutra. Okay, so and when we bring that in our Prasthanatraya discussions, it all makes sense because Yena Rupam Rasam Gandham Shabdan Sparshan Shtamaitunan Yetena eva vijanati kim matra parishishyate etadvai tat. So you need to know this fundamental truth that everything everywhere is controlled by the Supreme Being. So in this discussion, we've also now understood that the jiva is in a dynamic state in moksha. It is not a static entity. At least that is not what the Vedas tell us. We are entitled to have whatever opinion we want, but we cannot say that is the view of the Vedas, because the Vedas views are very clear, and here is an evidence from Chandogya Upanishad that talks about it. Okay, so swapnantam jagritiyanantam cha ube yena anupashyati mahantam vibhum atmanam matvadiro nasochi. So now Yama concludes these states of consciousness of jivas by putting in another verse, which is almost like a reminder, but also gives you some new ideas. Swapna, swapnantam. So you can split it into swapna plus antam, okay, or swapna plus sthanam. Swapna sthanam, he has described it already in the previous verses. Swapna antam means end of swapna state. End of swapna state is the sushupti state. So we can also take that as a sushupti state, or it is just a summary of what he has described. Jagrati Jagratyantam. Jagratyantam means Jagrati Sthanam, Jagrati Antaha, which is Swapnaha. That is, end of Jagrati state is the Swapna. Or Jagrati Sthanaha, wakeful state. So then you look at the next word, Cha Ube. So both these states. So there is a middle state that we have discussed in Mandukya Upanishad, where you are neither waking nor you are dreaming. This is the daydreamers who are daydreaming while they are driving a car, or the sleepwalkers who are dreaming but still going around and doing stuff. Yeah. So that is the in-between state. Cha ube yena anupashyati. So even those states are under the control of this person. And again, who is he? Mahantam, great being. Vibhum, vibhu means all pervasive, omnipresent. Atmanam, and again we've discussed this before. Atmanam, when the Upanishad says Atmanam, it either means Antaryami, that which is inside me, or my controller. Atmanam is my controller, my Swami. Yeah, and that is what he has discussed in the previous verses. So he who understands that all the states of the jivas, he is the Atmanam, the Antaryami that controls this. Matva dhiro na sochati. He who knows this, that courageous person who knows this, will never have any sorrow. The reason being, we are in sorrow because we think we are in total control of everything. And when we don't get what we want, but get what we don't want, that is when we go into a state of sorrow. But when somebody understands that everything is being dispensed by the Supreme Being, and based on my yata karma, yata shrutam, based on my yogyata, based on all the karmas that I've done, based on the sadhanas that I've done, if this guy just dispenses what I deserve, how can I be sorrowful? He knows exactly what needs to happen to me. He knows my destination and so on. So, matva dhiro na sochati. So that is the idea of talking about all the states. But what we will do is in the next class, there are some really remarkable verses. Ya imam madvadam veda atmanam jivamantikad ishanam bhuta bhavyascha natato vijugupsate etadvaitate. Okay. So every verse here, we have to take what is happening in the material world. We should ask the question, what happens in the moksha sthiti? Because he finishes saying, etad vai tat. That which controller here is the same controller in moksha. So we'll continue with that kind of discussion as we go along. So we have taken a good 1 hour to do this, and I'm going to close the session at that point, and we'll deal with further verses in subsequent classes. So a gentle reminder here, next Sunday is going to be very interesting. We are going to be doing chapter 13. It's been a long time since we've done it. We had a summer break. So Suresh ji is going to lead on this on chapter 13 next week. And the following week, we are just thinking about, it is 2 or 3 days before the Ganesh Chaturthi. And there is just an idea about, it gives us a forum to celebrate Ganesh Chaturthi in the proper spirit of the Upanishads and the Vedas and the Puranas. So if we do a 1 hour session on that, then what we can do is the following Wednesday or so, we can go and celebrate our own Ganesh Chaturthi at home in that spirit. So that's the idea. So for the next 2 weeks, we got interesting programs coming up, and then I will catch up with these verses in September. Okay. So on that note, Krishna Pranamastu, and we'll take up any Q&As and discussions. Deval, you want to start off with that? You had something to contribute. You had something to say.
Can I just, in the journey of souls, souls like us, which are nitya samsara, and it is now time for pralaya, and we've not really, we've microscopically progressed and not really gone anywhere. What happens to in the next manvantara, whatever, what, like you will still have your linga sharira, or I don't know what happens. That's what my question is.
Okay. So yeah, very deep question, Devalji. Yeah, so I think you said Mahapralaya, but there are lots of other pralayas also that happens. Say for example, in Manvantara, every Manvantara, what will happen is there will be partial destruction of certain components of the universe, but not the whole universe. The dissolution of the whole universe happens only in the Mahapralaya, whereas certain components of the universe will get destroyed in the Manvantaras, and then what will happen is a new Indra will come, new Saptarishis will come, Yama will change also, so all those fellows will change, but we will also go in through our cycles of samsara. So, okay, so that is one situation. But the Mahapralaya is interesting. So the Mahapralaya is where there is, what happens is, as we discussed very briefly today, the material world has completely dissolved. The Mula Prakriti, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas have gone into equilibrium state. And that is, there is no vibrations happening there at all. So the Mula Prakriti is there, and then Lakshmi is there, and then Narayana is there. Okay, so what happens to souls like us? So the view there is the group, the batch of jivas that have come into existence in the previous creation will now go back into the womb of the Supreme. So they go back in the womb of the Supreme, and they are sitting there, but they will be in the state of suspended animation. Okay, so this state of suspended animation within the womb of the souls should not be confused with the moksha sthiti of the souls, where they do not have any linga sharira. So there are two different states there. So here in the womb of the Supreme, you have these jivas that are still with linga sharira, and that it is the linga sharira where the karmic imprints are there and where the ignorance is also there. So these fellows are all there. So now your question is, what happens to them? So they are just sitting there. They've been given an opportunity in the previous creation to do some sadhanas. Some of them do, and some of them don't. Some of them that do, that are able to completely eradicate all their karmic imprints, and who have eradicated all their knowledge, what is happening to them is they join Chaturmukha Brahma, and then they are in the Satya Loka. And when the Mahapralaya happens, which is basically the end of Chaturmukha's innings, when his innings gets over, then they go along with Chaturmukha to the moksha state, those highly exalted soul. Certainly, as you said, not us who are Nitya Samsarins, but us, what happens to us is we go back into the womb of the Supreme. And that is why our scripture says, you got sadhana sharira made, make use of it, make use of it. If you don't make use of it now, you will go back into that suspended animation state. And then in the next creation, the question is, what will happen in the next creation? Do we again come back into the material world? Don't know. The Vedas tell us, how the jivas come into the creation? Brahman takes one handful of jivas and throws them back into samsara. Whether we will come back or whether we are in the part of the handful of jivas that come into samsara, nobody knows. And that handful is, of course, infinite souls. But whether we will come back to samsara, we don't know. And that is why our Shastras keep reminding us, this is the sadhana sharira you have. Make the most of it, because you don't know what the future holds. I hope that answers your question, but it is a very, very deep, complicated, fascinating topic that is again Devalji addressed in the 4th Adhyaya of Brahma Sutras. Neeta.
Thank you.
Sushruta, basic question to maybe just clarify my own thoughts. So Jiva is the Sakshi, right? So Jiva is the experiencer, as far as I understand. So when we are in dream state, again, the Jiva is the only one that has to experience. So is the Jiva sleeping or is the Jiva awake?
The jiva at that point is in a state of consciousness where he is aware of the dream activity that is happening in the mind, and he is enjoying or in the sorrow. He's got, depending on the theme of the dream, either he is enjoying it or he is anxious. We all know, and Deval can update us, 95% of the dreams, I'm told, puts us in a very stressful situation and we are anxious in our dreams. So that depends on, what is being projected by the Supreme. So yes, we are a witness, but the projector is the Brahman, but we are still the witness, and the Brahman projects it for our consumption and for our experience.
I think if we take a philosophical angle, all 4 states, Jiva is always in some sort of consciousness, because that is the definition, is my understanding.
Yeah, so he is in a state of consciousness, but remember Sushupti is a state of consciousness of ignorance. Okay, so in Sushupti state, he is in close companion with the Supreme, but he is ignorant of the fact that he is in close companion with the Supreme. So his state of consciousness in that situation, when he is neither having contact with the external world or with his mind, he is in contact with the Supreme, but that is a prajna state. That's why it is called pra-ajna state, where he is in full ignorance. That is his ignorant state, if you like. If you want to call that as a conscious state, it's an ignorant state, is the Sushupti state. But the only difference between the Sushupti and the Moksha state is, in Moksha state, he actually knows that he is in companion with the Supreme and he's enjoying it. Whereas here, he is in companion in the Sushupti state, but he does not know it. He wakes up and then says, oh, I had a very good sleep. I slept very blissfully. And that is the philosophical view on that. But yeah, fascinating topic. Okay,
Thanks.
so if there are no further questions, we'll close today's session, and I could ask Suresh to take us through Omkara Chintana, please. Wonderful. Take care, everyone, and we will see you next Sunday. Please do some homework on chapter 13. And as you know, chapter 13 is quite a complicated chapter. So there is, of course, there will be discussions and there'll be quiz also. And we got our quiz masters again doing the quiz on next Sunday. Okay. See you next week.
Thank you, Madhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you.